Alright, so Lil Durk has been locked up waiting to go to trial for the murder of Lil Pab, who is Quando Rondo's cousin, at a gas station in LA. Now, the target of that attack was actually Quando Rondo himself, but he's not the one that got hit. Lil Pab was. And his case remained pretty much unsolved until October of 2024 when a grand jury in California indicted 5 people, Durk being one of them. They formally accused him of putting a hit on Quando Rondo, leading 2 members of his OTF crew flying out and executing this hit. Durk was arrested at the airport trying to board a private jet, but had 3 separate international flights booked. The feds argued that he did that in order to throw the feds off of his trail, thinking that if he had multiple tickets, maybe they wouldn't show up to the airport that he was at. They said that one of the flights that he had booked was to a non-extradition country. And then in the superseding indictment that was filed in November of 2024, prosecutors alleged that he commercialized the murder of Lil Pab and rap lyrics that quote unquote sampled audio from Quando Rondo screaming at the scene of the crime. That is what the prosecutors have alleged. Now, in December of 2024, Durk was denied bond. The judge said that he felt like Lil Durk was a flight risk and a danger to the community, citing his wealth, influence, and history as examples of why he didn't want to let him out on bond. And then for about 4 months, there was nothing in this case. Then in April of 2025, on the 23rd, we seen Lil Durk and his defense team submit a motion for bond reconsideration. In that motion, which I covered on the channel, Durk argued that the lyrics that prosecutors presented to the grand jury to secure the indictment were altered, fan-made edits that offered no evidence of guilt. He said that the clip of Quando Rondo screaming no at the scene of the crime was added in post-production by social media content creators. He denied trying to flee the country, saying that the flights that he had booked weren't meant to confuse the feds. Instead, he had multiple flights booked just in case one of them got delayed. He would have an extra flight to be able to get on to make it to his destination, which he argued was ultimately Dubai, the UAE. He said that he was going there for religious reasons, argued that he had been going there for years now for religious reasons with his father, and that just because he was going to Dubai didn't mean he was trying to flee to a non-extradition country. They said that the one country that the government presented as a non-extradition country wasn't even the final destination. That was just a layover flight. He was meant to get on another one that ultimately would have took him to Dubai too. So even though there were 3 different flights, he's saying they were all going to the same place, and I only booked them in case one of them got delayed. I'd have another one to get on. With that, he requested that the judge reconsider his bond. And that brings us up into pretty much today. Well, yesterday, the 28th, where the government officially responded to this. And in this response, they're going to pretty much reject all of Durk's claims. They're going to say that while the lyrics may be fan edits, they're not why he's locked up. He's locked up because he allegedly paid for a hit, tried to flee, and is still dangerous. And they are going to ask the judge to deny bond again, right? So I got the document right here. And this is the government's opposition to Lil Durk's application for reconsideration of detention. And it says the United States of America hereby files its opposition to defendant's application seeking reconsideration of this court's detention order. This filing is based upon the attached memorandum of points and authorities, the files and records in this case, and such further evidence and argument as the court may permit. It says introduction. Defendant is charged with directing 6 hitmen to travel across the country to hunt and kill a rival, Taekwon Bowman, that's Quando Rondo. Lil Durk allegedly orchestrated and financed the brazen murder plot that culminated with shooters ambushing Quando Rondo's vehicle at a busy gas station in broad daylight, killing SR, which is Savaya Robinson or Lil Pab. Following a detention hearing in December of 2024, the court ordered Lil Durk detained based on flight risk and ongoing danger. It's reasoned that no conditions of release would reasonably assure the safety of the community, finding that the defendant uses his money, influence, and power to endanger individuals who he perceives as a threat. The court also found that the defendant was a flight risk based on his attempt to flee the country immediately after learning of his co-conspirators' arrests. Lil Durk now seeks reconsideration of that order, but Lil Durk's application fails to address any facts that the court relied on when it made its flight risk and danger findings, and fails to present information that was not known to Lil Durk at the time of the hearing, and that he has a material hearing on his dangerousness and flight. Instead, he offers essentially the same bond package the court already rejected and seeks to relegate an immaterial issue about when some of his violent rap lyrics were written. Indeed, the crux of Lil Durk's application is that he did write lyrics about greenlighting someone's murder, just that it wasn't this murder. But at the time of Lil Durk's lyrics and whether or not he commercialized his violence through rap, parentheses, which he did, has little to no bearing on the detention analysis before the court. The issue here is a narrow one. Has defendant presented new information not known to him in December of 2024 that has a material bearing on whether he should be detained pending trial? The answer is no. The government respectfully requested the court deny Lil Durk's application for reconsideration. So basically in that paragraph right there, they are saying it doesn't matter if the lyrics that we presented were fan edits or if he wrote the lyrics before the murder happened, because that's not why he's in jail in the first place. He's in jail because he orchestrated a hit on somebody. That's what they're saying. And then gives a background. It says the indictment and defendant's attempt to flee. On October 17, 2024, a grand jury sitting in the Central District of California returned an indictment charging 5 of Lil Durk's co-conspirators with crimes arising from the murder, including murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder for hire resulting in death in violation of 18 U.S.C. subsection A. It says Lil Durk was identified as co-conspirator 1 throughout the indictment, which listed Lil Durk's involvement in the murder scheme, including the allegation that he told co-conspirators that he would pay a bounty for Quando Rondo's murder. In the early hours of October 24, 2024, federal and local law enforcement executed multiple search warrants at locations associated with members of Lil Durk's organization, Only the Family or OTF, in the Chicago area and arrested the 5 charged co-conspirators. Soon after law enforcement executed the warrants, the FBI learned that defendant had been booked on 3 international flights, including at least 1 to a non-extradition country. Defendant skipped the first 2 flights and was arrested when he showed up to board a private jet scheduled to leave the United States a short time later. Now right here, I want to point out that they keep saying that he was going to a non-extradition country, but I could have swore in Durk's last filing, he clarified for them that that was not the final stop on that flight. It was a layover and he was going to get on another flight and it was ultimately going to Dubai too. I don't see them addressing that in this, and they're trying to paint it as if he was trying to flee. But I think that if he can prove that all 3 flights were going to the same end destination, I mean, that kind of pokes a big hole in that theory right there. I'm not saying in the whole case, but in that specific, he booked multiple flights to throw us off argument. Anyways, it goes on. It says on November 7, 2024, the grand jury returned the first superseding indictment against Lil Durk and his co-conspirators. The FSI identified defendant as co-conspirator 1 and alleged that he formed and was the leader of OTF, a group of individuals who engaged in violence, including murder and assault, at the direction of Lil Durk to maintain their status inside of OTF. The FSI also included an allegation that defendant commercialized his violence through rap lyrics. All right, so this is the superseding indictment they're talking about. And down here at the bottom, you can see that it says defendant filed a motion to dismiss the first superseding indictment based on false and or misleading grand jury evidence related to paragraph 6 of the FSI's introductory allegations. Now, they're not addressing that inside of this right here, and it says the motion lacks merit and will be addressed in a separate filing before the district court. So we won't get to hear what they say about the lyrics that they supposedly used to secure this grand jury indictment until in the future when they file another motion. But it continues. Defendant is ordered detained. In December of 2024, the court held a detention hearing and considered evidence and arguments submitted by the parties. Among other things, Lil Durk made the same argument he now raises in his application to reopen, a claim that the lyrics cited in an introductory allegation in the FSI about green lighting violence could not be about Lil Pab's murder because Lil Durk wrote the lyrics before the murder occurred. During the hearing, the court addressed the matter, finding that the consistency and timing of the lyrics have some relevance but marginal relevance to the dangerousness issue, which is the case that was before the judge on that day. After considering the evidence, the court ordered defendant detained based on flight risk and ongoing danger to the community. The court subsequently issued a thorough written detention order. As to danger, the court detailed the allegations against the defendant, including that co-conspirators acting at defendant's directions traveled to Los Angeles, tracked, stalked, and attempted to kill Quando Rondo by gunfire, including a fully automatic firearm in broad daylight in a busy Los Angeles intersection, and did kill a family member of the target who was traveling with him. The court also relied on evidence that this was not the defendant's first murder for hire plot, noting in a separate matter in Chicago, defendant is alleged to have engaged in similar conduct. That is, he offered money for people to kill those responsible for his brother's murder, and more specifically, offered to pay money for any gangster disciple that is killed. As a result, the court found the material proffered by the government supported the conclusion that Lil Durk uses his money, influence, and power to endanger individuals whom he perceives as a threat. As to flight, the court rejected the argument that Lil Durk's significant bond package mitigated his risk of non-appearance. Among other things, the court found that the defendant attempted to leave the United States upon learning of the arrest of his co-conspirators. And they did find that, but you know what I find interesting about this right here is they keep saying that he booked these flights and tried to flee after he learned about his co-conspirators' arrest. But I haven't seen them provide a shred of evidence that shows that he booked the flights after everybody was arrested. I haven't seen them provide any evidence that shows that he booked these flights because he heard about their arrests. For all we know, these flights could have been booked weeks or months in advance. We don't know because we haven't seen the receipts. Anyways, it says argument. Defendant's application fails to offer any new evidence, much less evidence that is material to the detention analysis. So they're basically arguing at this point that Lil Durk ain't being detained because of the lyrics, but instead because of the crime. It says a detention hearing may be reopened only if the judicial officer finds the information exists that was not known to the movement at the time of the hearing and that has a material bearing on the issue whether there are conditions of release that will reasonably assure the appearance of such person as required in the safety of any other person and the community. And that's a law that they're quoting, basically saying in order for a motion for bond reconsideration to even be reopened, that there needs to be new information that didn't exist whenever you was denied bond the first time. And that anything that is produced, any new information needs to have a material bearing on whatever stopped you from getting released. In this case, it is flight risk and danger to the community. They say courts have interpreted this provision strictly, holding that hearings should not be reopened if the evidence was available at the time of the initial hearing. They state some case law, and it says here, Lil Durk's only proffer of new information is that viral videos, which overlaid the news clip of Lil Pab's death on top of Lil Durk's song, including lyrics about green lighting the murder, were made by Lil Durk's fans, some of which have millions of views, not defendant. But Lil Durk's claim about the timing of his rap lyrics and the fan-made videos is neither new nor does it have a material bearing on the court's detention analysis. Tellingly, defendant's application does not even reference the court's analysis on danger of flight. It does not explain how defendant's lyrics or fan-made videos undermine the inference that Lil Durk, who has considerable resources, attempted to leave the United States upon learning of the arrest of his co-conspirators, or that the defendant uses his money, influence, and power to endanger individuals who he perceives as a threat. Now, hold on. He did address the whole flight thing in his last motion. Yes, he did. That's how we learned that the flight that was going to the non-extradition country was actually just a layover. He did address it. They're saying he didn't, but he did. He did also address this whole using his money and influence to endanger people. They addressed that as well by citing all of the community work that Lil Durk has done, all of the politicians he's been rubbing shoulders with. They did address that. So I don't know where the prosecutor is getting off saying that they didn't, because he definitely did anyways. It says, nor could it. At the hearing, Lil Durk's counsel raised this exact same issue of the timing of Lil Durk's lyrics. The court made clear that the lyrics were not material to its detention analysis, and they did find that in the original hearing. He did raise it up. It's not new information, but he did address it. It says the lack of materiality is confirmed by the court's oral and written explanation of its detention order, neither of which considers or even mentions Lil Durk's lyrics or the above referenced videos. And what they're talking about is in the description here, they've got like some YouTube links for videos, and these are legitimately just like random shorts that people posted over on YouTube. Like one was named Lil Durk diss Quando Rondo in new song with some emojis. Lil Durk really sampled Quando Rondo crying with another emoji. Crazy stuff. It says, moreover, Lil Durk's proffer that his fans, rather than himself, created the videos linking him to Quando Rondo's murder is immaterial to Lil Durk's danger of flight. Defendant was not detained because of videos his fans created. He was detained because he is alleged to be the leader of a violent organization, because he orchestrated and funded an execution-style murder with machine guns at a busy gas station, and because he tried to flee the country after his co-conspirators were arrested. But even if the lyrics or the video had some bearing on the detention analysis, they corroborate Lil Durk's danger. Lil Durk has repeatedly used his pulpit as a voice of violence, publicly rapped about paying for murders, hunting opponents with machine guns, quote-unquote bounty hunters in Beverly Hills, and other lyrics that have a striking similarity to the modus operandi used to kill Lil Pab. Okay, so they quoted another song here about him having bounty hunters in Beverly Hills. And down at the bottom, it's got an example. It says, Lil Durk was featured on another artist song in which he raps, I don't want nobody who you catch. I want the person I paid for. Trolling ass, we shot your homie. This is Gucci Mane's song Rumors featuring Lil Durk. I can't believe they put this song in the indictment. That's crazy, because this is the song where Gucci Mane is literally rapping about not self-snitching on yourself in music, and then Lil Durk kind of comes in and does exactly that on that song. Anyways, it also has another one here, a song called Scoom His Ass featuring Bonnie Mo. It's got the link for it, and the lyrics say, popping traffic, we in Cali, ride through Beverly Hills with them choppers, dying to see the oppers, bounty hunter, he ready to crack that little down to get her off. It says, although Scoom His Ass does not appear to have been officially released by Lil Durk, the lyrics are authentic as the government seized the audio file from a co-conspirator's cellular phone pursuant to a federal search warrant. So they got this song, I guess it was not released by Lil Durk, but they got it off of his phone. And I think I remember this leak, and I think it was called Uber Tags back when it leaked. And I think that was a couple years ago when this leaked, actually. I wonder if it was before or after the whole incident with Lil Pab and Quando Rondo. Because I feel like that would make a difference. If the lyrics happened before the incident with Quando Rondo and Lil Pab, then how could this possibly be relevant? Anyways, it says, as the court found in ordering Lil Durk's detention, Lil Durk uses his money, influence, and power to endanger individuals whom he perceives as a threat. Lil Durk is wrong to suggest that he is charged in this case or is being detained pending trial because of his lyrics. It's true that words have power, and Lil Durk's words about green lighting violence and placing bounties may be admissions of criminal conduct. This is for a jury to decide. But this case is not about how defendant made his money. It's about how he allegedly chose to spend his money and wield his power in August of 2022, which was on death and violence. Conclusion, for the foregoing reasons, the government respectfully requests that this court deny the application and maintain its order detaining defendant pending trial in this matter. So yeah, that's what we got. We got the government basically combating Lil Durk's motion to reconsider bond by saying he's arguing that the lyrics we used and the video edits that we used weren't made by him, but that doesn't matter because lyrics aren't important. And at the same time, they're also like introducing new lyrics into the case with these footnotes at the bottom. They're still claiming that he was trying to flee the country, even though he offered his explanation for why he had multiple flights booked. And at this point, it'll be up to a judge to decide if Lil Durk gets to go home on bond. For now, we're going to have to wait and see because that's all we got. And that's basically it for the video. Y'all got to let me know what y'all think about it in the comments down below. As always, it's been fun rocking with y'all, man. I'm out.